I just finished reading The Road by Cormac McCarthy, and I felt compelled to do a little bit of a video review for this one. Let's do a quick, short, non-spoiler review with a little bit of spoiler chat discussion at the end for what I think this book meant and why I think you should read it. Welcome back, guys. If you saw my Goodreads review, it's no surprise that I gushed about this book. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a super impactful read, and I think a lot of people should read it. This is a literary fiction. It's a little outside my genre, and really this is about a father and son making their way through a very bleak, post-apocalyptic, dark, depressing, just obliterated America. It doesn't really say, I think it does say, but basically they're making their way through this world after some unknown disaster leaves the world in ruin and ash. It's completely desolate. There's very few people. There's no signs of life. Animals are basically gone extinct. The land is, for the most part, infertile, and it's a very bleak, difficult, challenging existence. At some point, they make it known that they're trying to make their way to the coast. Their goal is to just make it to the coast. And along the way, the father and son have a lot of interactions, a lot of special moments, and a lot of really important dialogue. And they make their way through and they see very few people and they encounter some challenges along the way. I think at the very beginning, the father is sort of sick, and he sort of knows that he's sick. He knows that there's probably not a very good chance, and he's sort of preparing himself through the entire book for the potential end. He's coughing up blood, and throughout the book he sort of has to stop and reassess and acknowledge the fact that he's not doing well, and of course the world around them is not very promising. There are very few prospects, and survival is not taken for granted. Let's just say that. So super impressive. I think let's just get into the writing. The prose was captivating and poetic and beautiful. I will say there were a few times where I thought it was, or it could come across to someone who's not maybe as familiar with Cormac McCarthy's style, come across as a little bit flowery, a little bit masturbatory in parts, a little bit, you can tell the author's flexing his prose muscles, and he's a very good writer, and it really does read at times like poetry. So for some people, it might seem a little flowery in parts, but I think if you appreciate it and you respect good prose in the right context, at no point is it not welcomed. At no point did it feel like it was out of place. And the interesting, poetic, very descriptive pieces of writing didn't go on for too long. They're in the right spots for the right amount of time. And I really like his style of writing. The first book that I read by him, Blood Meridian, was an entirely different experience. I enjoyed it. I wouldn't say I enjoyed it, but I respected it and I appreciated it, and I'm glad that I read it. But that was also a very dark, depressing, dreary kind of book, and very heavy themes and very violent and gruesome. This one is not gory and violent and gruesome, although there are some injuries and things that they would be expected to endure as they make their way through this wilderness. But Blood Meridian was very, very different. I think that if you like his writing, if you liked Blood Meridian, you should love this book. I don't think it would necessarily go the other way around. Blood Meridian can be considered a very different type of experience, but the point is his writing, the imagery, how vivid it is, the atmosphere created. I mean, this guy's an expert. Let's just say, he really does know how to write, and it comes across sentence after sentence after sentence. In terms of character development, really you are following the son and father. In fact, they're not even named. It's just the man and the boy. I really like this because there's a sense of mystery. It's a very intimate story, yet you can picture anyone in any different type of situation in this book. And what I mean by that is this book can be a metaphor for anything. The challenges that one encounters through life, and the fragility of human life, and the power of love and hope, and how despair can be completely overwhelming, how people can give up and make difficult decisions, how we deal with those decisions, and the power of love and having somebody to worry about and to care about. This one is a very powerful read if you are a parent and you have a child. I do not, but I can imagine that, well, at the time of this recording, I don't, but I can imagine this being a very powerful book when you're thinking about your child or someone who depends on you. Alternatively, I read this from the perspective of, a son and a child, of a parent and of a father who I love very much and who has gone through many of life's challenges just to make sure I'm taken care of and that, I have what I want and what I need. And so the love that a father and son have in the best of circumstances, obviously not everyone is lucky to have a relationship like that, but the bond that a father and son, or let's just say a parent and son, child can share is a very powerful thing. And so I was reading this at times from the perspective of the son and how important his father is to him, and how it, they don't say a lot. They do talk, but the man is of very few words. Let's just say that. And so they're not overly sharing, like they don't have a whole lot of discussion, but when they do, it's very powerful. And you can tell that it doesn't go without acknowledgement, at even just internalized from the son, how much his father is sacrificing and doing to make sure that the two of them survive and that the two of them are taken care of. All of that to say that this book is incredibly moving and powerful. It's very dark, it's very depressing, it's very dreary. I wouldn't recommend this if you want a nice pick-me-up. It is a short book and it is a standalone. And so for that reason, I would recommend people, especially when you're trying to get into a little bit of literary fiction, to try and pick this up. I think you might be surprised at the difference in style and the unique type of book that it is, and the doors that it might open for you as a reader. I think fantasy reader, sci-fi reader, thriller reader, whatever, this book has a lot that could appeal to a lot of people. It's not for everyone. There are going to be people that, 10% of the way through are like, I can't deal with this. I don't like the subject. I don't like the dark atmosphere, the depressing content or nature of this book. Or I don't like the writing, and that's completely fine. I think give it a shot because you might be very surprised whether or not you enjoy this one. So there's not a whole lot more that I can say on the non-spoiler side without spoiling parts of the plot or parts of, maybe some moments. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up a little bit of a spoiler bar here, and I'm just going to give my overall reaction and interpretation of this book, what I think it meant, why I think it's important, why I think you should read it, and kind of what it meant to me. If you're here for the non-spoiler stuff, you can probably bounce. I appreciate you hanging out. So this book to me was one giant metaphor. And I'm of the opinion that books can be interpreted in many different ways. And I think that's what that's why books and reading in general can be so powerful and so important and so fun for people, is because at the end of the day, it's art, and art is subjective. And unless there's a specific message to a book or very in-your-face themes, I think there is room for interpretation in any sort of book. To me, what this book meant, this book was an exploration of life and growing up and the challenges of life, and having somebody that depends on you, and love and hope. I mean, there's a lot of themes embedded, woven through the fabric of the story itself and the characters. But at the heart of it, I think this is really about a father and son's relationship and about life in general as a metaphor, and the challenges of life and the hardships that one endures through the experience of being a human being on this planet. I think it explores that really well. At the end of through the book, the son is very good at his core, and he really wants to do right by people that they pass, as far and few and far between as they are. He wants to do the right thing. He wants to take care of people. He wants to bring people along with them. He wants to share what very little scraps of food they have with people. And the father is the one who sort of has to, put his foot down and say, look, we can't even survive if we barely have enough to survive. We can't help this person, or we can't do this or that or the other thing. And he kind of has to check the son's spirit a little bit. It's a little disheartening, but it's very realistic. And you can tell that they love each other, but they accept that, the father accepts that the son is extremely good and a little naive because he's young. And the son acknowledges that the father is trying to do the right thing. And at the very center of everything and every action, he's putting their own interests first. They both get it, but they're a little bit conflicted at times. And it's very interesting the way that this thing is explored and the way this plays out. It's a short book. And throughout the story, the son the son thinks that he sees this dog, and the father says, no, like, I don't think there was a dog. I think he was just seeing things. And then he says that he sees this little boy, and then he kind of runs back into the woods or something. I'm paraphrasing here. And the father just is pretty sure that this didn't happen. He's like, there can't be. You didn't see this boy. At the end of the book, again, spoilers, the father finally dies. And throughout this story, he's been training and teaching the son, actually teaching, but also showing by example and stuff, how to survive and how to do things and how to be resourceful and what's important and what's not, and what to prioritize and what not, and how to take care of yourself and how to navigate the world, right? At the end, the father dies and the son is left by himself. He grieves and he sort of takes a breath and realizes that now he's on his own. And this was kind of the beautiful moment of the book for me, is because, and I think leaves a lot for interpretation. He sort of goes about his way, starts making his journey through the road. He takes the gun, he takes his stuff and starts to move on. And he comes in contact with this man that I think appears earlier on in the story, but just in passing, and his wife. And I believe they have a dog. I don't know if he mentions they have a dog back where they are, or if the dog is there. I can't remember. But basically, they look at each other, and he's being nice to the boy. The boy is a little hesitant to trust the man. But as I said, throughout this whole story, the boy was the one who was overly trustworthy. I think I said naive before. He's not really naive. He's just good of heart and very trusting. What happens is the man, says, why don't you come with us? Is that your father? What happened? He said, well, he died. Okay, well, is that your stuff? Go grab your stuff. Let's go. I got stuff, back at the camp. I have a son and daughter. Do you have a son, or do you have a little boy? Because I think he's remembering this little boy that he saw. The man says, yes, I do have this little boy. The boy ends up going with this man, and they kind of accept one another and move on. And I think this could be interpreted in two ways. One is, it could be interpreted that if you take this at face value, the boy finds this man in the woods. He says, I think his wife is there. They say they have this camp and kids and whatever. They take him into the woods and they eat him, because it's a very extreme and difficult situation for everybody. And there is cannibalism. People are eating each other. It is the most dire of circumstances in this world. So you can interpret it as that and take it at face value and go, oh, this boy is screwed now. His dad died. He just met this dude. This is where the story ends for this guy. I chose to interpret it as a metaphor, like I said, for life and all this stuff. And to me, his father's death and his encounter with this man is the moment that he sort of passes into manhood and grows up and acknowledges now that he's on his own. He's going to be talking to his father every day. His father says, you can always talk to me. I'll always be there with you. You have to move on. You have to take care of yourself. This is kind of where I started crying a little bit. And I feel like it's him almost meeting a grown-up version of himself, or he's finally meeting and encountering and being allowed to accept and find the good in people and the good in the world that he's always been trying to find. Now that he's on his own, he's making that decision. So the little boy that he thought that he saw, maybe that boy is real. And or maybe not. Maybe he's choosing to think that. Maybe he's choosing to think that the dog that the man has, the dog that he saw when he was a boy, maybe he's choosing to believe in that as well. And so maybe he's believing, as he grows up, as he crosses that threshold into life on his own and life's challenges as, grown up himself. He hasn't really grown up. He's still kind of a child. But in theory, his dad dies. He's on his own. He's choosing to accept the good and they say they're carrying the fire, right? They're the good guys. He's always talking about, Dad, are we the good guys? Like, are you sure we're the good guys? And they make it very clear that they want to be. And I think that this is his moment of growing up, acknowledging that he's on his own now. Whether or not that man is a metaphor for, or a reflection of him and the good in him, or the possibilities and the hope that he sort of carries with him, or if he's just choosing to see the good in people. I don't know. I don't really know what else to say. It's a very interpretable book, and this book can go a lot of different ways, and it can mean a lot of different things to different people. I myself am very curious about what you think. If you've made it this far and you've read it, maybe you care to share your non-spoiler thoughts maybe in the comments. Be careful of people who haven't read this and who want to experience it on their own. So be careful of spoilers in the comments, but I'm very curious what you guys think and how this book made you feel. Did you cry? Did you think of it on a deeper level? Was it very superficial to you? Did you take it at face value as a post-apocalyptic surviving in the wilderness type of story? Did you get more out of it? I'm very curious. That's my review. That's my reaction. I really liked it. Needless to say, I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and that's it. So I appreciate you hanging out with me. If you like the vibe, go ahead, subscribe. That's all I got. I'll see you guys on the next video.